What's up, fanatics? So let's see, hit 60 home runs one year and then only have 51 total hits the next. I'd say it's safe to say the big dumper has taken a big dump on his career. I'm Tim Clark, and you're listening to the Musings of a Sports Fanatic, a podcast found exclusively here at PennSports.live. All right, before we get to the big dumper and other baseball stuff. Um, my weekly shout out to FeedSpot. Give them their applause. Go to FeedSpot where you can find my podcast and others in the top 20, and just a lot of cool things at FeedSpot that you can find. So go to FeedSpot and check that stuff out. All right. So baseball, Cal Raleigh. Um, First of all, I don't know that there's a bigger disappointing team this year, although the Pirates are trying to match that to the Seattle Mariners. Um, One blip away from the World Series last year, and they just can't find their footing this year. And in large part, Cal Raleigh's hitting like 157, 12 homers. He's only got 51 total hits. He had 60 home runs last year. You want to talk about a fall from grace. To give you, if you're a Pirate fan, to give you some perspective, Henry Davis, who is the much maligned catcher of the Pirates, and he's earned that, hitting 174. He has a positive .8 WAR, and Cal Raleigh's got a negative .4 WAR. So a 1.2 difference between Henry Davis, a guy hitting 174, and Cal Raleigh. Obviously, if you're talking about individuals, Cal Raleigh's the biggest disappointment individually this year. But then you look at his team, and that division is there to be won. The Astros are winning the division at what, one game, two games above 500. Texas is right behind them, and they're the one game below 500. That division's still up for grabs. And I looked, I was like, why aren't the Mariners? What's up with them? They've got like, I don't know, 8 guys with double-digit home runs. No one's hitting a ton per average. But then, other than Raleigh, no one's also hitting 190 or anything like that. So I was like, okay, let me go to the pitching. Bullpen is probably major league average. They're not one of the better bullpens. They're not the worst bullpen. They're major league average. And then I look at their starters, and no one's having like a Cy Young type of season. Wu and Kirby and some of those guys. They offloaded Castillo to trade deadline. But they're all, again, major league average to above average. You look at their ERA, they're not giving up. I think the worst ERA is like 4.13. Now, again, they don't have anyone that's like at 2.20 or something like that. But, starters are giving up 3-4 runs a game. And maybe 5, and so you say, well, you ought to win most of those games, some of those games, and they are mired in third place, and what, 4, 5, 6 games under 500. It's kind of bizarre, to be honest with you. But before I move on to other things, let me take this a step further. How about the American League in general? Right now, the Detroit Tigers who tried to quit. We're going to trade Tarek Skubal. They made a couple other smaller moves. Like they were sellers. They were sellers at the trade deadline. What was it, 2 weeks ago? Less than 2 weeks ago. Taping, by the way, August 14th, Friday at 5:30 p.m. So 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, they were sellers and threw up the white flag and said, nah, we're done. They are now the third wild card at one game below 500. I could really, maybe I'll save that for my rant later on. I will save it for one of my rants. I'll do two rants, smaller rants at the end of the podcast. But one game below 500 right now qualifies them for the playoffs. And you just look at it. Twins below five. Look at all the teams below 500. They're still in it. My God, Baltimore's in last place at 58 and 63. I wouldn't say they're out of it. What's that? 2 games, 2.5 games behind the third wild card. It's the American League has been dreadful this year. Outside of Tampa, the Yankees, and now the Red Sox, and the Red Sox actually hit a little bit of a skid here again. Not anything like the early season skids they had, but and then like I said, Houston's I think 1 or 2 games above 500, winning that division. The White Sox are hanging on in the Central. Again, it's the Tigers that are trying to track them down. Cleveland is just barely keeping their head above water. The Twins have been doggy paddling all year. Like I think we can, I think we can, I think we can, and maybe they can at this point. Maybe they can at this point. So I just thought I wanted to start with that this week. Sort of an individual in the American League that is the poster boy for struggle, Cal Raleigh, the big dumper. Um, the Mariners, to me, and the Blue Jays too. The two teams that duked it out. The two teams that I was reminded. I saw a buddy at a golf tournament last week, and he had listened. He said, I love that podcast where you were doing the podcast, but the Mariners and Blue Jays were playing, and I must have made some statement like no one may score a run in this game. Remember that game? Those were the two teams that were battling it out, to go to the World Series. Blue Jays ended up winning, and both of them have been god awful this year. So I take it back. Maybe the Mariners and the Blue Jays kind of co-poster children for teams in the American League that struggled, and then just the league itself. The American League this year is it's bad. The teams are bad. There's nothing good about it, and I thought that was interesting. So, all right, so let's move on to other baseball. And let's move closer to home, and we'll talk first about the Phillies. I don't know that either fan base in Pennsylvania right now is very happy with their team. As a Pirate fan, I can absolutely assure you the Pirate fans are not happy with their team. But um, my friends that are Phillies fans, my buddy Eric's texting. He's like, the bullpen, they got to get rid of just about everyone in the bullpen. My walking buddy Mark is a Phillies fan, and he said, "Oh my God, there's no one they can bring in from the bullpen." He said, "On offense, they all strike out." As the Phillies fans, Ricky Batalico continues to make nightly rants. He puts my rants to shame, by the way, but they're still there. They're still. I think they are now. I think they jumped a half game ahead of the Diamondbacks for the third wild card, because the second wild card is now the San Diego Padres, who I've been saying all year long. And I almost gave up on them. I may have given up on them. I can't remember if I said that or not a few weeks ago, that maybe they weren't going to hit that hot streak that I thought they would have to get into playoff contention. They have done that. I don't even know that you can call it a hot streak as much as the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, some of those teams kind of backing up and allowing the Padres to jump in there. The Cubs are going to be the number one wild card. That's becoming pretty clear, and now you have three teams battling for two spots. I don't think St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Washington, or Florida, or Miami, I guess it is. Miami is the one in the standings that are in the best shape. The Pirates just played them, and although they beat the Pirates 2 games out of 3, and I will say this, just, in terms of body language, the Marlins look like a team that is trying to contend. The Pirates look like a team that's trying to get to the end of the season. So I'll give the Marlins a fighter's chance, I guess. Um, but you look at them and you look at their roster, and really the six fans that show up for games should be really happy and pleased with their team this year because they're maxing out what they have. And I always say that like that's what you it's all you can really ask of your team is to max out their talent and their ability. And I think Miami's doing that. But I just don't think they're going to be able to get into that. So I think it's those three teams, and there's going to be one team that is sad at the end. Going back to the Phillies, as one of those three teams, I did get a chance to watch them. I see them when they play the Pirates, but I watched the Cardinal game the other night, and it's the pitching is not great. Certainly, the bullpen is as my friends have stated to me, the bullpen is not good. Um, but their fourth and fifth starters are killing them. And I said that all along, and they really didn't fix that problem. Aaron Nola, although he does still get strikeouts, he also gives up 2, 3 homers a game, and his ERA is ridiculous. Painter pitched pretty well the other night against the Cardinals, but they had to take him out in the fifth inning because he's one of those guys. If he's doing okay, it's almost like, well, let's take him out before let's have him have a good feeling and get him out of there before things go haywire. Um, and then to the offense, Luis Arise has, I'm sure, been a pleasant, welcome addition for Phillies fans who are sick of watching their guys strike out or hit home runs. Schwarber hit a home run into the cornfield. They won that game against the Twins in Iowa. By the way, great idea. Baseball doesn't get a lot of things right. That's a cool game, Field of Dreams game, and playing the game in Williamsport to tie in with the Little League World Series, which I think will be next Sunday night, also a cool idea. Um, so kudos to baseball for getting a few things right, and that certainly those two games they got right. But anyway, back to the Phillies. It's home run or bust other than Luis Arise. Alec Boehm is still public enemy number one in Philadelphia, and they keep rolling him out. Putting Harper in right field, I think people are realizing this is maybe not a great idea. So I don't have a good feel for whether they're going to hold on to a playoff spot or not. Um, when I watched Arizona play Pittsburgh, I think they have a nice ball club, but they really didn't do anything at the trade deadline to improve themselves, and so they are what they are, and they've been, you know, every 10 games, 1 10 game streak, they're 3-7. The next time they're 7-3. Excuse me. So the Diamondbacks are kind of sort of that 500 or playing 500 baseball, just in streaks, if you will. Um, so Phillies fans, I don't have a good feel for it. My buddies, they've all said, look, even if they make the playoffs, they're not going to do anything. They get in the playoffs and they stink it up. I said, well, hold on. What if this is the year that they kind of limp into the playoffs, but get the bats going? Because if they get the bats going, you won't have to worry about Nola and Painter in the playoffs. Um, you will have to find someone that you can trust in the bullpen. But your top three starters, those three starters, you get to a playoff series, you're looking at those guys probably giving you 7 innings. In most cases, it would be 7 good innings. So then you just have to find that eighth inning guy to get to Duran in the ninth inning. So you never know, is what I'm saying, Phillies fans. But you got to get in to have a chance. And so, but I don't have a good feel for whether I think they can make it or not, because they're so wishy washy this year, to be honest. Um, but anyway, across the state in Pittsburgh, I was going to put this in my rants, and now I'm going to have two rants as it is. Adding the American League, it reminded me of playoffs, but. the Pirates look like they're mailing it in. Now they won Braxton Ashcraft. How about that? 83 pitch complete game, which is the only way that he can have a complete game because they would have taken him out once he got to 90 pitches. Um, but gave up a solo homer in the ninth inning, or it would have been a shutout. Again, the Marlins offense is not exactly murderer's row. But nonetheless, it was good to see him get back on track. In large part, Ashcraft has been, well, this not just in large part. He's had a bad stretch there after the All Star break, and he had a couple outings going into the All Star break. But he's been the ace of the staff. Make no mistake about it. And as they continue to build his innings up year after year, you know what I like? The two things I like about Braxton Ashcraft. Number one, he throws strikes, and sometimes they get hit. And that's but you know what? He's not diddling around at the I'm trying to weasel a couple things around the edge of the strike zone. He's going to come at hitters, hit it if you can. He had 10 strikeouts yesterday, so they didn't hit too many of them. And number two, he works fast. He gets the ball back from the catcher. Give me the sign. Let's go. Batters throughout the year have started to, try and step out, call time, do whatever they can. Wait on the pitch clock as long as they're allowed to wait to try and slow him down a little bit. So he's fun to watch. Works fast, throws strikes. That was Ray Miller's mantra when he was the Pirates pitching coach back in the day. Work fast and throw strikes. So Ashcraft has been pleasant, but I mean, the offense has finally succumbed to all the injuries. You just can't have all those injuries. I think O'Neal Cruz is close to coming back. I saw they're calling Billy Cook back up, which tells you what they think of the kid they call the password, Yuxton Garcia. He ain't a major leaguer. He ain't going to cut it. It was worth it. It was worth it to try and get him. I don't think he's gonna be a major leaguer. But the offense has finally succumbed to all the injuries. O'Hearn and Cruz are out. Horowitz hasn't been able to quite gain his traction since he's come back. He had been hitting 280 when he got hurt, and he's struggling a little bit to find his rhythm. So the offense is what it is. But the two things that just are killing me is the defense. I said it last week, so I won't beat a dead horse. But Nick Gonzalez, you can't. If you roster Nick Gonzalez next year, it's got to be a full-time DH. I know I said last week people were saying, well, he'll go back to second base when Brandon Lau moves on to another team. He's not good at second base either. And his IQ, baseball IQ, is low. Jake Mangum's another one. He's a 300 hitter and does some of the dumbest stuff that you'll ever see. And he gets away with it because he's a hustler. If O'Neal Cruz did the stuff that Jake Mangum did, the media would be just stringing him up by his toenails. But when Jake Mangum does it, well, we'll overlook it because he's a gritty, he's a scrappy player. Well, you know what? Scrappy players can be stupid too. And Jake Mangum's stupid. Now, I like him. I want him on my team because he gets under the skin of the opponent. I like that. When he's not doing stupid things, he is gritty. He is scrappy. He'll be that guy that with two strikes just chops one somewhere and beats it out. I like all that stuff, but his base running blunders, he swings at literally everything, which was all warm and fuzzy and funny when he was fouling them off, and then he'd wedge one somewhere. But what about the times when he strikes out because he swung at a pitch that was 6 feet over his head or 6 feet outside? Those two guys are baseball IQ negative. And then Gonzalez adds bad defense. And then the other thing that's just driving me bananas is the pitching. Now Jarek Jones is back in the tank. Bubba Chandler is up and down, up and down. Good start, bad start. Can't find his command. Does find his command. Hopefully by next year he works that out, irons it out, maybe with mechanics. I don't know how much a pitching coach actually helps pitchers when you get to the major leagues. you hope that there are another set of eyeballs that can look at things and see something. Well, whatever Bill Murphy is seeing, he's not fixing anything. He's not helping any of those guys. And Paul Skeens led the group, but they wanted the old pitching coach fired. And I really didn't have any problem with that. I didn't think Oscar Marine was any great shakes, but the pitchers have regressed this year. The team ERA is much worse, and it starts with Paul Skeens. And I'll end with this with the Pirates. And the reason that they are now floundering, they're in last place in the division. There's only 9 teams worse than them. They are floundering in large part because the guy that was supposed to be the ace of their pitching staff got fat and jiggly. This past start, they pulled him after 5 innings. And I wonder if Don Kelly's maybe he won't say it. He would never say it. But I wonder if he said, you know what? I've seen enough of this. He threw 5 innings, 65 pitches. He was sitting at about 95 with his fastball. We were worried when he was sitting at 97 with his fastball. Now he was down to 95. Then the next day, he and his glamour girlfriend hit Miami Beach, and there's pictures taken. They land in the New York Post, and he's out of shape. I don't know how else to put it. Look, I know what out of shape looks like. Trust me. He's out of shape. Now, I don't need a bunch of people defending them online. Pitchers are never, look at Rod Beck Rod Beck made that joke. I've never seen a pitcher go on a disabled list because he pulled his fat. CC Sabathia, David Wells. Okay, you can always find some guys like that. Babe Ruth was a big fat tub of lard. Maybe the best player in baseball history. I get it. Baseball is not a game where you have to be, rock solid in terms of your physique. But seeing that beer gut and that little belly on him at the beach. But you know what really ticked me off more than the fact that he's got a beer gut is the fact that his team's struggling and he decides Livy wants to go to the beach. Well, what Livy wants, Livy gets. He's become the first 2 years, he was just Paul Skeens, a guy trying to be his best and trying to make his team better. He got hit by the star bug, and his girlfriend already had been hit by the star bug, even though I don't know, other than being a good gymnast, which gets you not a whole hell of a lot, as far as I can tell. And now she's trying acting, and now Paul's doing commercials. He's been hit by the star bug. He has weird reactions in the dugout. He's clowning around all the time, whether they're winning, losing, or whatever. And I'm not saying you can't have some fun in the dugout. But seriously, is anyone else it's weird? Like he and Bubba Chandler came out to dump water on Braxton Ashcraft, which is getting a little old, to be honest. Every team does it, but and Chandler threw his water at him, and then Skeens kind of threw it at Chandler, and then this just the guy's just I don't know. It's straight. His post game press conferences are weird. He's laughing. Well, I didn't think my starts were that bad until this last one. He's putting off weird vibes, but I think it's because he thinks he's a stud. He's a star. I won the Rookie of the Year. I won the Cy Young. I'm the man. Got geeked up to be the #1 starter on the American team in the World Baseball Stupid Classic, and he ain't been any good since. So that is my beef with the Pirates. Is that the guy that should have carried the pitching staff is actually dragging the pitching staff down. And, in the bullpen, the new guy from Florida doesn't look all that great. So he'll fit right in. So it's disappointing. But what's worse is they've made a guy. I was 13 years old or turning 13 years old when they won the World Series in 1979. So I'll let you do the math on how old I am. but I've been around for a long time and I've watched them regularly. I've suffered through the drug addled 80s. Um, the Sid Bream slide. I wrote this in my column. Um, I suffered through all those 100 lost seasons, only to watch them finally build a winner, but couldn't win the division. And so they had to play in the one game wild card, and they only advanced once. And now back to 100 lost seasons. And finally, this year looked for real, and they frittered it away to the point where for the first time in and this, I know I'm a glutton for punishment when I said I still watch all the games. I now, if I have something else I'm doing, I'm not worrying about it. I'm not going to watch the game. Don't care. Now, if I'm not doing anything, I'll flip it on and watch it. But they've driven a guy that's sucked it up through 47 years of misery, mostly misery. And that's what this team has done. And I'll fit right in because that seems to be Paul Skeens' attitude is, oh, well, whatever. There's still some games left. Um, yeah, they're done. They're finished. And it didn't have to be this way this year. This year they had a team that was capable. So this is not one of those 100 lost teams. This is a team, and someone's head should roll. Preferably Ben Charrington, although he has made a couple good moves. The trades at the deadline were fine. The offseason acquisition of Montgomery, Lau, and Mangum was a steal. So he is technically on a bit of a hot streak, although he did sign Marcelo Zuna too, to balance that out a little bit. But you can't. I don't. How do you not make changes? 7 years into his tenure, and here we are again, probably going to have another losing season. Um, and so I don't know how you can't make changes. I don't think Don Kelly. I'm neutral on Don Kelly, but maybe he needs to go. Like heads need to roll. This was a failure. This wasn't like the other ones. The other seasons are where Ben Charrington should have been fired. To put rosters together like that, of course, you got Mr. Cheapskate, as the owner, but this year the roster was good enough. So that's why I'm saying, even though it's his first full year as manager, someone's head has to roll on this one. If someone can find Travis Williams awake, let it be his head. Um, he doesn't do anything as far as I can tell anyway, so that wouldn't really affect the organization a whole lot. So um, anyway, enough about the Pirates. Let's go on to golf. The FedEx Cup was taking some heat online because they're in this deal. So the top 70 players, and it's only 69 because Daniel Berger dropped out, but um, the top 70 players play this week at the St. Jude's Classic. I believe they're at the St. Jude's Classic in Memphis, to try and get into the top 50 for next week. And then finally, the final week, the following week, where the top 30 will duke it out. I still like it. The criticism was that okay, you're playing for the top 50, but there are so many people that are already locked into the top 50. I think it was 42 or something like that. So there's really only eight spots. But whereas a guy might, like, let's say guy shot a bad first round on Thursday, but he's locked in. He doesn't want to drop down too far, because the closer you are to the top when that last week rolls around, the better your chances are in the final. And you certainly have to make the top 30. I guess they did stop with how they did that. You start at 600 and you start at 400. I think they did, but you got to be in the top 30. So there's still reason to play. So that guy that had the bad round on Thursday that might say, you know what, I'm locked in. I'm just going to go through the motions, maybe work on a couple things the rest of the week. Now they're saying, you know what, I can't shoot another 77. I got to go low. I want to get back up there. I want to bounce back up, make sure, that I'm in the top 30 when that last week rolls around. So I think it's still okay. Look, they're going to change. They're changing the end of the year system here after next year, I believe. I think we're going to have one more year of the FedEx Cup. So if you don't like it, suck it up and deal with it for one more year. I don't know. It's golf being an individual sport. I don't know that there's a great way to end the season. I know some people have suggested maybe one of the majors, maybe move the PGA Championship back, um, maybe into early August, like around this time where it used to be, to give the fans something to look forward to, and then also the players something to ramp up for. Um, but but I'm not so down on the FedEx Cup like a lot of people are. It's certainly not perfect. I will admit that, but it's as good as anything right now to finish the season. The other golf news was bye bye Liv. Liv basically announced that this is all she wrote. John Rahm's going to leave at the end of this year. Now, Bryson DeChambeau, who I'm pretty sure uh, may not be all there anymore. There might be some screws that are loose. Said, I'm hoping that we can put this thing together and he team golf. I think this team golf thing really has a chance. No, Bryson, it's over. It's over. Um, Go do your YouTube channel. That's what you want to do anyway. But the team golf, the live thing is over. It was a dud from the start. You got your money. John Rahm got his money. That's clearly all he wanted because now he's like, I got to get out of here. Um, so he collected. He got rich and well, I guess he was already famous, but now he wants to come back. I think we all knew this is where this was headed, but don't let the door hit you on the way out, is how I feel about that. David Faraday, I guess you'll have to go. Maybe you can go announce, maybe there's some mini golf tournaments that you can go announce because, the PGA Tour didn't get his chance. Um, that was nonsense too. And I have no sympathy for him as well. So, all right. So we threw a little golf in there, but we're going to go back to baseball now. I'm going to jump in the time machine and let's see what I have in the 8 track this week for the time machine. How about some Y and T? I want it's August 14th. I'm running out of time for that song, "Summertime Girls." Um, I'm in love for a minute or two. I always like that lyric. Watch the girls go by. A great, just a fun summertime song. Always reminds me of being on the beach and whatnot. So a little Y and T in the 8 track. And we're going to Williamsport. The Little League World Series will take place this coming week. I saw Pennsylvania, the team from Westchester, won the Mid Atlantic today. So Pennsylvania is going to be represented again this year in Williamsport, which is always kind of neat since it's the host state. But I didn't fully know the history of this event. And look, this is still baseball in its purest sense. Now, I know we had the Danny Almonte thing years ago where he was, 14 years old or whatever. And, the Chinese team, it was always questionable. And they did find some kids that were, drove to Williamsport to show up for the tournament. So don't get me wrong. They've had their issues. Just this year, they had to bounce the Tulsa team from Oklahoma out of their regional for nonsense. So it's not perfect, but it is still baseball in its purest sense. Kids, having fun, true all-star teams, not travel teams and all that nonsense. Although I think some places they are. I know I've heard them say, "Well, this team's been playing together for whatever," which would indicate to me that this indeed was probably a travel team. But I think most of them are still kids from different teams in a league that were the best in that league that get to play on the All Star team. So, anyway, the history of this thing started in 1947 as just more of a local thing with Pennsylvania and New Jersey teams that participated in the 1947 first version of the Little League World Series. I think it was called the National Series. I don't think it was called the World Series then because it didn't have teams from other countries. It went global in 1950. In 1950, it went global. I think I saw Mexico and Canada. I think so. The surrounding countries, or maybe it was one of the Latin American teams, and Canada joined the fray in 1950. CBS was the first network. It's now ABC, ESPN, but CBS was the first network to televise the Little League World Series in 1953. The first non-United States winning team was from Mexico in 1957. And I think just to stop going over the years for a minute, I think one of the cool things it does, you do kind of say, oh, in America we say, oh, let's root for the American teams and hope that they win. But it's an event. It's not like the World Cup or the it's kids. So if Mexico wins, if Latin America wins, if Chinese Taipei wins, if Japan wins, whoever it is, they're still kids and they're still having fun and whooping it up when they win. And it's like, okay, that's cool. But you do have that world versus America feel in the Little League World Series. Um, 1959 is when it moved to Lamade Stadium, Howard J. Lamade Stadium in South Williamsport. And then finally in 2022, they expanded the number of teams to what it is today 20, 10 American teams from different regions of the country, and 10 world teams from around the world. And it's just a neat event. One of my golfing friends, Ken, is going to the World Series again. He took his nephew. He was telling me the story. He said, first of all, it was on my bucket list. He said, when I retired, he said, I decided I wanted to go to Williamsport. And he said, boy, he said, I took my nephew, we had a blast. And he said, when the other teams aren't playing, he said, I forget which country it was. I want to say it was Latin America. I think he said one of the Latin American teams, and he said they sat right by us, and he said you start talking to the kids, and he said, of course, we didn't have it was a language thing, but he said, boy, were they having fun and whooping it up, and we were having fun with them, and so the kids have a great experience. Um, and again, it is sort of baseball at its purest sense. Um, with kids playing, and there have been a lot of major leaguers. Bryce Harper, Lloyd McClendon, when he was the Pirates manager, they always brought that up. He played in it, and a lot of major leaguers have played in the Little League World Series. Brothers, and fathers and sons. Sometimes it's a dad that's coaching the team, but it's neat, and it's a fun event. And again, I know there's all these. Cal Ripken now has a league that's locally. That's what our kids play in. Not nearly as good as Little League. It's not even close. But they affiliate with Babe Ruth, which people aren't playing Babe Ruth. Our local Babe Ruth team is in Branson, Missouri. They're in the Final Four, which is good. Look, good for the kids, but they had to add world teams to the Babe Ruth World Series because no one plays Babe Ruth anymore. You really, I know Little League, again, not perfect, and they've certainly had their reasons for people to get angry with them and some of the things that have happened over the years. So again, not perfect, but I think you want to be affiliated with Little League And then go up, teener leagues and pony league and all that, different brands, different versions of it. But the Little League World Series, that's a little bit of the history of it. And again, just watching kids play baseball is about as pure as it's going to get. So um, anyway, all right, let me see if I can find my buddy Spicoli um, for my rants. What's your problem? There he is. So my problem, two of them. I've come up with two of them this week, Spicoli. So my original one, college basketball, and this is actually going against my team, Louisville, who I root for in college basketball. Just signed this past week Seth Trimble from North Carolina. He had gone in the portal, but wasn't sure because he's one of those 2022 players whether he was going to be eligible or not. And then, of course, the judge in Colorado that ruled that the and I forget how many, there was a certain number of those players from that 2022 class that should indeed be eligible by this 5-year window rule that the NCAA has instituted. That 2027 would be their, 2022, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 is their 5th year, and that they should be eligible. Now, the NCAA is looking for to overrule that, so it's still in the courts. So Trimble doesn't know. Trimble doesn't know whether he's going to be able to play. He said, "I called North Carolina. I'm like, I didn't necessarily want to leave. Mike Malone, the new coach down there, had to build his roster without him. That's why all this stuff is so stupid." And getting the courts involved is frustrating. And I'm not sure, like, Seth Trimble went to he played some NBA summer league, never signed a contract, which is why he's still eligible. So I'll give him that. He did everything the right way that you're supposed to keep your eligibility. But it's stupid. So now Louisville has added him, and it makes them better, no doubt about it. But there's someone, and I'm thinking of the kid, and I can't think of his name, the kid that's coming back, that now is going to get bumped down the rotation some, because Trimble is going to be, if he remains eligible to play. And that's what everyone's beef has been. And it's true. And I heard Danny Hurley sort of talk about it. You've got your roster built. And now all of a sudden they're going to open this special portal window for these kids that you can add these players. And now you're telling a kid that you had already settled in. You've been doing summer workouts. You're playing games. Some of these teams have been playing scrimmages against other teams or going overseas and playing. And hey, we're developing our rotation and figuring out who fits where. And now all of a sudden you're going to say to that kid, "Sorry, we just got this stud that's coming out of the portal." I don't know that I'd call Seth Trimble a stud necessarily, but he's a really good player. And you're going to get bumped down. And then what about the kid whose roster spot, even though he might not have been playing much, now he might get bumped completely? "Sorry, we don't have room." We've got to get the. I don't defend the NCAA very often, but when they make rules that are fair, and this was a fair rule, 5 to play 4, whatever they're called, 5 years. You got a 5-year window. I think that's fair. My walking buddy Mark, we were talking about it, and so if you got a late start into college for whatever reason, you still get your 5-year window. So it's about as fair as anything the NCAA has ever come up with. Let me put it that way. But now we've got judges jumping in. And doesn't it make you question our legal system? That you can go find a judge, just like Texas Tech did with the Brendan Sorsby thing. We can go find a judge that will rule in our favor. Well, then they push back is, well, we'll find a judge that will overrule that. And then back. And then it ends up in the Supreme Court, and they can't be trusted to do anything correctly either. So it is kind of scary to think about our legal system and our court system, but this is just wrong. And again, I know this is helping my team that I cheer for. And I'm very sure that next year I will cheer Seth Trimble on if he's found eligible and is playing for Louisville. But it really is diminishing. When you have, we tried to get Congress to pass a bill. They're not going to pass that bill. They don't pass anything. They argue. Everything's politicized. One side sees it this way, another side. And then we had different caucuses. The Black Caucus had a problem with it, and this caucus had a problem with it. And so you look, they're and this all stemmed from the adults again who got greedy. It's all about greed and all about money. And now we're in this situation where no one's going to accept any ruling that the NCAA makes, even though this one was quite fair. And the 2022 players said, well, hold on, COVID, da, 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 da. Yeah, COVID, life, it happens. Tough luck. No one else in the world gets do-overs because of it. So it's just it's bad. It's a bad precedent of, well, it's not even a precedent, but and it's screwing everything up. So you've got the portal, but I'm fine with the portal. I'd like it regulated a little bit better, and it should be one window, and it should be a smaller window. Kids either have to poop or get off the pot. Either you're in or you're not. And it should be limited. You should get one portal. I don't know if it'll ever get back to that, but that's the way it should be. But even if it doesn't, okay, so the portal. And it's not as much fun. Louisville has it completely. They've got the kid, I can't remember his name. They've got one kid coming back. Everyone else is different. And they spent money. Louisville apparently had an abundance of money because Trimble cost them $3 million by the reports. So they still had $3 million laying around to sign him. And again, we root for the jersey. I'm a Louisville fan. I root for the jersey, but it's not. You don't get to know the players, and so it stinks. And you've got the NIL. They're fighting over the NIL. And the reason NIL's a mess is because the adults in the room couldn't get enough money. So then the players said, well, we want ours. And rightfully so. And then last but not least, they said, well, let's put everyone in big conferences. And, I could rant on that for days, especially on the football side of it, more than the basketball. And it's you can't. So now the schedules are never going to be balanced. Some teams are going to have an easy schedule. Some teams are going to have a hard schedule. Some teams will be in between. If you had smaller conferences, you could do a round robin where you play everyone. You get a fair champion that way. And so college sports is a mess. But this latest thing caught my eye with the Trimble signing at Louisville. Even though it helps my team, it's dead wrong. It's dead wrong that we're doing this. But thank you, court system, because there's going to be a judge somewhere out there that'll rule in their favor. And that's bad news. It's bad news for the NCAA, who's not a very smart organization to begin with. And even when they do make a good decision, now they're going to lose out in court. So my other rant before I move on that just popped into my head when I was talking about baseball. And again, I was having a discussion. I guess that was with my we were on a walk the other night. Too many teams in the playoffs in all sports, and college football is going to do it too. But baseball in particular, if you're 500, and the NBA's gotten really bad when they added those extra teams. You can be the 10th place team, and you get a chance to do that play-in thing. Heck, they're going to have teams some years in the NBA. And I think they have, 4 or 5 games under 500 in the playoffs. No, but let's say Detroit. Honestly, if you're in the American League with 40 games left, you might be starting to say, if we can get to 500, we might make the playoffs. And I'm sorry, in a 162 game season, if you can only win half of those games, you should not be in the playoffs. There are too many teams in all of these playoffs. the best team, 162 games. And let's say the Brewers, I'll use them for an example. Let's say they hold on to the best record in the National League. Okay, they get a bye. How about if you want to have all these teams, how about the team with the best record gets an automatic pass to the championship series? Everyone else can fight it out to see who's going to play them. Then maybe I'd buy it. But then they sit out even longer. And that's the downside. So you say, well, the Brewers get a break, they get a bye. Well, if history is any indication, the teams that get buys do not do very well because they've lost their playing rhythm. And I just so there's 162 game regular season should mean something. And what happens? Let's say I'll pick the Tigers since they're the ones right now. The Tigers finish 500 and get in the playoffs, and they roll in there, and they get hot, and they win the best of three series, which is still it's better than a 1 game series, but a 3 game series is still a crapshoot. So they win the three. Now all of a sudden they're in the next round, the divisional round, and now maybe they picked up steam. They get hot. They play the team that was sitting out, and all of a sudden they win. Like, I'm sorry, that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. And again, this can be put in place. I could be talking about the NBA, the NHL, college football. The NFL does it. Too many teams making the postseason, and I get it. And Mark argued this point with me on our walk. It allows more fans to still be interested in what's going on towards the end of the season. And that was the theory when they put it in place, and I get it. And maybe this is just me being old school or maybe just being old. I don't know. But I just think that if you bust it for 162 games and you have the best record and the second best record, or you win your division, whatever the case might be, that should mean something more than, well, it gets you in and you get to play these other teams that kind of scrambled their way in. Look at the Phillies back in 2022. I think it was 2022. They squeaked in, but they got rolling at the end of the season to squeak in, and they stayed hot, and they go the whole way to the World Series. And I know, look, that's exciting, but I don't know. 162 game season should mean more than what it does right now. So anyway, all right, my random off-topic topic. I was struggling to come up with something. I could rant about some stuff in the world, but it's too serious. So I'm going to give you a quick TV review again, and I'm going to go back to Netflix this time. By the way, I'll give you two. If you like kind of silly crime drama comedies, on Prime, a show called Wild Cards season 3 is up, but it wouldn't let me watch season 3 yet, so I don't know what the deal is on that. But again, if you're into serious stuff, excuse me, this will not be for you. This is sort of a silly police drama comedy. There's going to be there's a little bit of a love story that you're waiting and waiting and waiting. It's one of those deals, kind of like the Moonlighting. We all waited for Sybil and Bruce to finally kiss and get together. That's a little bit like this, but if you're looking for something that's just light, and you don't have to think a lot about, Wild Cards would be good. The one I wanted to tell you about is on Netflix, and again, it's back to their documentaries. I just said to someone the other day, I don't think I've ever watched a bad documentary on Netflix. But the Idaho murders, the school, the campus murders, of course, a sad, horrible event, but well done. I watched another documentary about it that wasn't nearly as good as this one. This one had a lot more commentary from family members and the police and how they went about solving it. And it really allowed you to put yourself in the shoes of not really the victims so much as the survivors and the couple of the kids that were in that house that survived it. So I would recommend it. Again, if you're like me, kind of a true crime buff, first of all, Netflix in general is a spot for you. But but this show was pretty good, the Idaho Murders. So I would highly recommend it. It's only 3 episodes again, so it doesn't take a gigantic chunk of your time to get through it. So. All right, that will do it for this week. Gosh, I'm closing in on my day job starting up again here soon. So, but I will be back again next week, and we'll see. Phillies fans, it's from week to week. It's changing for you guys. So we'll see if it's up or down next week for Phillies fans, and see what else is going on in the world of sports. Until then, you know the drill. Be nice to one another.